To get started, I'm going to be working with a 3.5mm crochet hook. So you want to take your yarn, you want to make a slip knot, and then insert your hook, and then just pull your knot up to the top of your hook, but you don't want to pull it too tight. And then you want to chain 4. And then you want to insert your hook into the first chain, and then pull your tail end round, and then pull your yarn through both your loops. And then you want to chain 3, yarn over, and work into the centre that you've created here. And then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And you just want to do this all the way around until you've got 12 chains. So once you've completed your first round, you should have 12 stitches going round, and then you want to slip stitch back into the first stitch. So just pull through and then pull through again, and you can just pull on your tail end to tighten that gap in the middle, so you should close it up. And so for your second row, you want to chain 3, and then you want to do 2 treble crochets into each stitch. So this should make your 12 stitches into 24. So you want to work your treble crochet into this stitch, and then work another one into the same stitch. And you're going to do this all the way around, doing 2 treble crochets into each stitch until you've got 24 for your second row. You're just doing it as you would do a regular circle. So once you've completed your second round, you should have 24 stitches going all the way around, and again you can slip stitch into the first stitch. Just pull through one and then pull through that one to fasten. And then for your last row of increases, if you're doing 3 like I am, you want to chain 3. And then for your first stitch you want to do 1 treble crochet, and then for your next stitch you want to do 2 treble crochet. And then for the next one you're just doing 1, and for the one after that you're going to do 2. And you want to repeat this all the way around, and you should end up with 36 stitches altogether. So again, once you've completed your round, you should have 36 stitches, and you want to slip stitch back into the first stitch. So at this point I'm going to finish doing the base, and I'm going to transfer it over to the knitting needles. You could do it a little bit bigger if you wanted. So I'm going to take my double pointed needles, and I'm going to use the crochet hook to switch the stitches onto the needle. I'm going to put the first one on like that. So now you could just work through as normal if you wanted and add your stitches that way, but I want to create a little bit of a ridge going round, so I'm going to work in from the back of the stitch and then work in through the front of the stitch next to it, and pull the yarn through, put it through both, and then just pull it out a little bit and put it onto the needle. And then I want to do the same thing again. So through the back of the stitch that I've just come through, and then into the front of the next stitch, pull the yarn through both, and then pull it out a little bit, put it onto the needle again. I'm just going to repeat this all the way around. It can be a little bit fiddly if you're not used to it, and if you want to do it just like regular stitches, it might be easier if you haven't done it before. But with a little bit of perseverance, you should be able to get all your stitches transferred onto your needles. So I'm going to do this until I've got 12 stitches on this needle, and then I'm going to transfer over to this one and then onto the next one. That's why one of the reasons why I wanted the 36 stitch circle, so I could have 12 on each. So once you've done the first needle, it should look like this. So you can push it up a little bit and then you want to take your next needle and you want to again go in through the back of the stitch that you've just pulled through, and then pull through your next loop, and then just insert your needle and then pull it tight, and then just work around again the same way you were doing before until you've got 12 stitches on your next needle. And you want to just do this for both your last needles. So once you've added your last stitch, you should have 12 on each needle. So now you can just treat it like regular knitting in the round, but your first row may be a little bit tight because they are still crochet stitches rather than knit stitches. So you can take your fourth needle and you're just going to work your knit stitches as you normally would. And just knit all the way around. So once you've knitted all the way around your first row, you've converted all your stitches into knit stitches, and you should have your tension back to what it normally is. And if you want to remind yourself where the beginning of the row is, you can just add a stitch marker at the beginning here. And then you can just knit as normal until you've got it as long as you want. So for me, it's going to be 20 rows for the first part, so you can just knit round another 19 rows until you get to the next part. So once you've done 20 rows, you should end up with something that looks like this. So now I want to do a row with some gaps in, just to create the spaces for the drawstring. So you can do your gaps in whatever way you prefer, but the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to knit 2, and I want to bring the yarn to the front, and then I want to knit 2 stitches together. So this effectively knits 2 but creates the stitch that you've dropped. And then I want to knit 2 again, and then bring the yarn to the front, and then again knit 2 together. And then knit 2, bring the yarn to the front, and then knit 2 together. So you can see the gaps slightly, but they will show up more when you do your next row. And then you want to do the same thing for your next 2 needles. So knit 2, bring the yarn to the front, and then knit 2 together. And keep doing this to the end of this round. So once you've knit to the end of that row, you can either knit your next 4 rows as normal, or you can do ribbing. So I'm going to do a ribbed effect at the end, just so that it won't curl at the top, but you can have it curl at the top if you want, just as an extra detail. I have done that on one other bag that I've done. So to do my last rows, I'm going to knit 1, and then I'm going to purl 1. And then knit, and then purl, and knit, and purl. And I'm going to knit 1, purl 1 all the way around for the next 4 rows. So once you've finished your last row, you should have something that looks like this, and you can see where you've got your gaps for your drawstring there. So now you just want to cast off using your usual method. So once you're down to your last stitch, you can fasten off, or if you want to cover up your end, you can insert your crochet hook again and then go into the first stitch in the beginning of your row, and then just pull through that, and then pull through your last stitch, and then cut your tail end and pull that through. So next you want to deal with your tail ends, so you can turn your bag inside out, and if you worked over this tail to begin with like I did, you can just snip the end like that, and then you just want to take your other tail end, thread it onto a darning needle, and then just weave it in a little bit at the back. So next you want to create your drawstring. So to do this, I'm going to take the yarn and make a slip knot, and we use the crochet hook again, and I'm just going to do a foundation chain for this. So just want to pull through each loop, like this, and just do this until you've got it as long as you want it. And once you've got it as long as you want, you just trim off the excess and then just pull this through to fasten off. So next you want to take your button and you want to thread the yarn through the buttonhole, and then just pull this bit through as well, and then you want to thread it in through these gaps. So you want to go in the first gap and then pull it out through the next one, and then just keep doing this until you've got it all the way back to the beginning. And then once you get back to the beginning, you want to thread through the other buttonhole. and then you can just match up your ends. And then you can push your button down to the beginning of your bag. And you'll use this to fasten. So to stop your drawstring from coming out of your button, you can tie a couple of knots at the end of your drawstring, or you can add a bead like I've done. And once you've got your bead on, you just tie a couple of knots at the end of your wool just to hold that bead in place. But if you prefer to do it without the bead, just tie a little bit of a knot in this bit. And then you can trim off your excess. So once you've done that, you can just do a little bow or a knot to tie your drawstring together. And that is your completed mini drawstring bag.